The galaxy had known war for centuries, but none like what was coming. It started with a blip, a strange echo in the gravitational field just outside Sector 17B of the Elysian Drift, a place no ship dared wander unless they were looking for trouble. A place that the Zarn Dominion had locked down tight for decades. When their long-range sensors picked up the distortion, the Zarn scientists gathered in silence. Nothing had ever appeared in that sector uninvited. Nothing. Until now. "Run it again!" Commander Threll barked, his long, eel-like fingers twitching. The technician obeyed, tapping at the crystalline control slab embedded into the floor. "Confirmed. Mass displacement equivalent to a Class Z battlecruiser, and it's moving straight toward us." Threll's slitted eyes narrowed. "That sector is a void. There are no Dominion fleets in that direction." Which meant only one thing: unknown contact. Within minutes, the Zarn flagship Krailtak was on full alert. Fighters scrambled, shields powered up, and all 6 of their Dreadnought-class cannons pivoted toward the anomaly. The high strategist of the Dominion, Lord Vakarun, appeared on the central viewing screen, his chitin armor gleaming with authority. "If it's another rebellious species trying to test our borders," he hissed, "we will make an example of them." But it wasn't just another species. When the distortion finally cleared, revealing the object at the heart of the anomaly, a silence fell over the Zarn bridge. It wasn't organic. It wasn't anything recognizable. It was brutal, angular, like something forged out of hate, matte black plating, scorched with the scars of countless battles, and etched into its prow, in human standard script, UHS Revenant, a human warship, alone, in Dominion space. "Impossible," Vakrun spat. "Humanity was pushed to extinction during the Cradle Siege. That ship must be a ghost." But ghosts don't lock targeting systems. Suddenly, the Revenant's side panels erupted open, revealing banks of weaponry far more advanced than any Dominion database had recorded. Railguns, plasma lances, missile bays, and something glowing like the heart of a sun, pulsing red and humming low, as if the ship itself was growling. On board, Captain Layla Monroe stood at the edge of her bridge, hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes glowed faintly, not just from adrenaline, but from the neural implants embedded deep in her skull. Her crew, the last of Earth's finest, moved in silence, unified, efficient, deadly. "They've locked sensors on us," her lieutenant said, voice steady. Layla smiled coldly. "Let 'em watch. Make them remember who we are." With a single nod, the Revenant fired. The first railgun volley tore through the closest Dominion frigate like it was made of paper. One shot, one kill. The second barrage split a destroyer into molten chunks, its debris scattering like ashes into the vacuum. The Zarn ships, trained to fight slow-moving orbital threats, weren't prepared for a ship that moved like a predator. The Revenant danced through the battlefield, outmaneuvering missiles, slicing through hulls, and cloaking itself between shots. Inside the Zarn command ship, panic spread. This is not possible," Threll shouted. "Humanity was supposed to be extinct." "Then why is that thing wearing their flag?" one of the junior officers screamed. Lord Vakarun was silent, watching the tactical readout shift from an overwhelming advantage to a massacre. "Because," he said quietly, "we underestimated them." On the Revenant, Layla watched the chaos unfold with clinical detachment. The Dominion had bombed Earth into ruin, turned its cities into craters and its oceans into poison. They'd laughed as humanity scattered across the stars, hunted and broken, but Earth didn't die. It adapted, it built, it remembered, and now it was time to make them pay. "Prepare the Trinity cannon," Layla ordered. "Let them see what extinction really looks like." The core of the ship began to glow brighter, feeding on dark matter siphoned from subspace itself. Dominion scanners screamed warnings, power readings off the charts. The kind of energy you'd only use if you weren't just trying to win, but trying to send a message. The kind that says, humanity's not dead, it's just getting started. The Zarn fleet had never faced terror like this. Inside the Dominion flagship Kreltak, alarms shrieked through every corridor. Their language, usually calm and full of cold logic, now carried panic in every syllable. Officers scrambled, shouting commands, pushing for shield reinforcement, evasive maneuvers, anything to hold back the monster tearing through them like tissue. But it was too late. The Revenant charged straight through the center of the fleet, flanked by a cascade of burning Dominion wreckage. Its hull was cracked in places, scorched from returning fire, but it kept moving, implacable, relentless, terrifying. Inside, Captain Layla Monroe didn't flinch. She stood tall as her ship's systems screamed around her. One of the medics had tried to persuade her to rest. She didn't even respond. There was no room for rest, not anymore. "Target the command ship," Layla said coldly. "I want Vakrun looking me in the eye when we bring his empire to its knees." "Yes, Captain." In the corner of the bridge, Chief Engineer Voss swore under his breath. "That thing's gonna blow a hole through time if we keep charging it like this." "Good," Layla replied. "Maybe the past needs to see what the future looks like." The Trinity cannon, a weapon never tested in battle, a weapon built in exile, reached critical capacity. It vibrated through the ship's bones like a heartbeat, threatening to tear it apart from within. It had no official specs, no safety protocols, only one goal: eradicate. Meanwhile, on the Kreltak, Lord Vakrun gripped the edge of his throne. His long claws dug into the metal as he stared at the incoming ship on the main display. "Get me its commander," he growled. "Sir." Threll blinked. "I want to see the human." A moment later, the comm channel flickered to life. Static cracked. Then a face appeared. Human, female, eyes like twin storms. Layla Monroe didn't speak immediately. She let the silence stretch. "So," Vakrun sneered, "a ghost speaks." Layla tilted her head. "You've gotten older, Vakrun, or maybe just slower." "I remember your face," he hissed. "You were at the siege of Jupiter. You watched your world burn." "I did," she said. Her voice was low, almost soft. "And I made you a promise that day." His sneer twitched. Layla leaned closer to the screen. "I said I'd come back, that I'd bring hell with me." The connection cut. Vakrun stood slowly. "Evacuate the command ship." "What about the fleet?" "Evacuate." But there was no time. The Trinity cannon fired. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't even a blast in the traditional sense. It was a tear, a rupture in the vacuum of space, as if the universe itself had been split open. Energy didn't just surge outward, it collapsed everything in its path. Entire ships folded in on themselves, crushed under impossible gravity, then atomized. The Kreltak was hit dead center. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, the flagship, pride of the Dominion fleet, simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not burned, erased. The remaining Zarn vessels fled in every direction, scattering like insects caught in sunlight. The Revenant held position, smoke rising from its vents, power systems straining to stay online. Layla exhaled. "Damage report?" she asked. "Trinity core is unstable," Voss replied. "We got maybe 2 more shots before the ship implodes. And the fleet? Gone. Whatever's left is running scared." She allowed herself a small nod. "Then we've just started." One of the young crew members, barely 20, turned toward her. "Captain, what now?" Layla stared out the forward view. Stars scattered across the void like broken promises. "We hit the next Dominion sector, then the next, and we don't stop until the entire Empire knows what it means to fear humanity." The bridge fell silent. Not from doubt, but from belief. Because if Earth had one thing left, it was vengeance, and it came wrapped in steel, fire, and fury. The Dominion broadcast silence. Across the galaxy, systems once bloated with propaganda about humanity's extinction now pulsed with fear and confusion. In Zarn-controlled colonies, whispers filled the air like static. A ghost ship, a black blade in the void. The last human warship. The Revenant had become a myth in just 42 minutes of re-entry. On board, the crew worked around the clock. The Trinity cannon was cooling, but barely. The hull needed patching. Oxygen reserves were low in 3 sectors, and the backup reactor was beginning to hum off-key. But nobody complained. Not out loud. Not when they all knew what they were doing. They weren't trying to win a war. They were trying to finish one. Captain Layla Munro paced the dimly lit bridge, her neural interface flickering faintly at her temples. The black coat draped over her shoulders was old, frayed at the seams, its earth patch half burned off, but it still carried weight. A symbol, a scar. She stopped near the main viewport. Ahead lay Calvarus Prime, the Dominion's largest shipyard, orbiting a gas giant with rings made of raw ore. According to recon data, it produced 60% of the Zarn's military fleet. If the Revenant struck it down, they'd do more than damage the Dominion. They'd cripple its ability to rebuild. But Calvarus was no ordinary target. It was guarded by a full defensive ring. 12 war stations, 3 orbital destroyers, a planetary defense AI that once burned a pirate armada out of existence in under an hour, and Layla wanted to go straight through the front door. "You know this is suicide," Voss said quietly beside her. She didn't look away from the glass. "Probably. We hit it, we can't just jump out. It'll trap us in system." "I know." He sighed, rubbing his face. "Then why the hell are we doing this?" Layla turned to him finally, eyes cold as ice. "Because they think we won't. And that was always humanity's advantage, wasn't it? The Dominion fought wars like equations. They ran simulations, counted probabilities, followed protocol. But humans? Humans were chaos. Rage, memory, the kind of force that didn't just fight for victory, they fought for vengeance." She stepped to the holotable. The crew gathered, pilots, engineers, medics, no soldiers anymore. They were survivors, and survivors don't give speeches, they give plans. Layla pointed at the map of Calvarus Prime. "We're going straight through Sector 8, their weak point, not because it's unguarded, it's actually the most fortified, but because they'll never expect us to hit it head on." She looked around the room. "We'll use a decoy drive on one of the drones, fake a hyperspace malfunction, lure 2 of the destroyers off course, then we hit them with everything we've got before they can recalibrate." A young gunner swallowed hard. "And the Trinity?" Layla didn't blink. "We save it for the core reactor." There were no cheers, no battle cries, just quiet, grim nods. Every face in that room had lost someone. Families turned to dust, homes turned to slag, memories erased by Dominion fire. And now they carried all of that into battle. The next 12 hours were pure madness. The Revenant dropped into orbit under heavy fire, shields flaring red as defense satellites opened up. The decoy drone veered off like a wounded fish, burning, sparking, panicking. 2 destroyers chased it instantly, just like she'd predicted. Then came the charge. The Revenant dove through the defense ring like a demon tearing through heaven's gates. Its railguns thundered, plasma streaked the sky, orbital drones exploded one after the other, their fragments raining down like hellfire over Calvarus. But the Dominion wasn't just going to roll over. Their planetary AI locked on quickly, rerouting station fire, coordinating countermeasures. The Revenant took a hit to its port side. Deck 3 lost atmosphere. 2 crew members gone, another railgun fried mid-charge. And still Layla didn't stop. "Keep going," she roared. "Get us to the core!" The ship surged forward, smoke and blood in its wake. Every light flickered, every system ran hot, but still it pressed on, because humanity had always done the impossible when everything said they shouldn't. As the ship closed in on the heart of the Calvarus complex, the pulsating reactor hub, Layla whispered just 3 words. "Fire the Trinity." And again, the universe screamed. The blast from the Trinity cannon lit the orbit of Calvarus Prime like a new sun. From the moon colonies on the far side of the gas giant to the mining rigs in the asteroid belt, every living creature stopped what they were doing and looked up, because they could see it, even without instruments, even without warning. One moment, the heart of Dominion industry pulsed with confidence, surrounded by thousands of tons of defense metal and energy fields. The next, it was gone. Not destroyed, annihilated. The shockwave spread like a ripple in space-time, dragging twisted debris in all directions. Shattered hulls, broken turrets, charred Zarn bodies, all of it sucked into the gravitational scream left behind by the Trinity blast. The space around the core collapsed on itself briefly, then burst outward, leaving behind a silent, boiling scar in orbit. But the price was brutal. Inside the Revenant, chaos reigned. Smoke choked the bridge, sparks rained from overhead. One of the primary conduits along the ship's spine overloaded and sent a surge through all lower decks. The power core stuttered, then dimmed. Lights flickered to emergency red. Gravity cut out for 7 seconds, sending tools and bodies tumbling through corridors like ghosts in a tomb. Layla hit the floor hard when the gravity snapped back. She gritted her teeth and pushed herself up, blood in her mouth. Her neural implants flickered violently. For a second, everything in her vision went white. "Status!" she yelled. "Core integrity at 31%, Voss growled, coughing from behind a damaged console. "We lost propulsion on 2 vector stabilizers. Navigation's shot. Hull breach in Section 5C. Can we still move?" Like a drunken bear on a minefield, Layla blinked the blood out of her eye. So that's a yes. Somehow her crew laughed, even through the pain, even through the burns and blood, because they'd done the impossible again, and they were still breathing. But it didn't last. A proximity alarm screamed. "New contacts," the tactical officer called out. 15 vessels inbound, Dominion reinforcements." Layla's chest tightened. She turned to the viewport. Beyond the shattered remains of Calvarus Prime, streaks of energy ripped into the system, warp trails from incoming ships. And these weren't patrol boats, these were capital ships. The Dominion had noticed. And now they were angry. Voss cursed under his breath. "They're bringing the heavy fleet. We're sitting here with half an engine and a frying pan for shields." Another officer looked up, face pale. "We won't survive another engagement." Layla stood still for a long moment, silent, focused. Then she walked over to the comms station. "Patch me through," she said. "Open broadcast, all frequencies." The officer hesitated, then obeyed. The screen flickered to life. First static, then a connection wave rolling out into open space. Anyone within light minutes would hear her. Allies, enemies, civilians, pirates, smugglers, scientists, the whole galaxy. And then her voice rang out. Strong, clear, final. "This is Captain Layla Monroe of the UHS Revenant, transmitting from the ruins of Calvarus Prime. To every soul still fighting, to every survivor, every outcast, every orphan of the Dominion war machine, we're still here." She looked straight into the lens. "They said humanity was extinct, that we were broken, lost, forgotten. But today, we reminded them who the hell we are. We're not just fighting back, we're burning their empire to the ground." Behind her, the crew stood tall, faces bloodied, bruised, burned, but alive, defiant. "We may not live through this, but every second we do, we make them bleed. If you can hear this, pick up a weapon, steal a ship, hack a drone, do something. The Dominion is not invincible. We've proven that." Layla stepped back, her voice quiet now. "Earth lives. Humanity endures. We are the storm they were too blind to see coming." She cut the transmission. A long silence followed. Then her crew erupted, not in cheers, but with purpose. Consoles were rebooted, damaged panels pulled off, hands bloodied, fingers burnt, hearts ready, because they knew the Dominion was coming, and they were going to meet them head-on. The stars around Calvarus Prime darkened. Not literally, but it felt that way. The kind of darkness that comes before a slaughter. The kind of silence that tells you death is approaching, and it's wearing armor. 15 Dominion ships exited warp with ruthless precision, forming a tight sphere around the broken orbit where the Revenant floated, wounded but defiant. They didn't open comms. They didn't broadcast a warning. Because to the Dominion, this wasn't a war. It was cleanup. Inside the Revenant, the mood shifted fast. The fire of Layla's speech was still burning in everyone's chest. But the reality outside the hull was enough to make a man swallow his soul. Voss was rerouting power from life support again. "If we keep the core stable, we can push for one last burn." "Define burn," Layla asked. "As in, light the whole damn ship on fire and crash it into something important." A small smile touched her lips. "You're speaking my language." But they all knew the odds. The Revenant had given everything to take down Calvarus. Her systems were fried, the Trinity cannon was a glowing corpse, and they had maybe 1 hour of engine thrust left, at best. And the Dominion? They were at full strength. The center vessel bore a name burned into Layla's memory. Vertok. A command dreadnought, 77 decks, crew of 30,000, home to one of the Dominion's high warcasters, Zarn Elite, who'd personally overseen the siege of Earth. "They're not wasting time," said Torres, the ship's lead gunner. "That's a hammer." Layla's voice was quiet, distant. "It's not for us. It's for anyone else listening. They're making an example." "So what's the plan?" Voss asked. "We charge? Ram something?" Layla looked around the dim, scarred bridge. Her people, her family, every one of them had bled for this. She could hear a faint hiss behind the main bulkhead, steam leaking from the overworked coolant lines. Somewhere below, a body bag was being zipped. Another engineer. Name unknown, story unfinished, and then the sensors pinged. A strange, erratic signal. Not Dominion, not from the Revenant either. Layla frowned. "What the hell is that?" The tech officer turned in disbelief. "Multiple warp signatures. Closing fast. Not Zarn. Human." Everyone froze. The viewport blinked. Then, as if the galaxy itself was answering a call, 5 ships dropped into orbit. Old ships. Rusted, modified, patched with stolen parts and outlawed tech. Each one bearing a crude, hand-painted flag. Black stars, red stripes, the scattered fragments of Earth's fallen banners. The first message came through open channel. "This is the Dead Reckoner, responding to Revenant's call. You lit the fire, Captain. We're here to pour the fuel." Layla's breath caught. Then another voice crackled through. "This is Wraith 10, picking up a whole lot of targets out here. Mind if we break some bones with you?" Then another. "This is Echo's Wake. You gave us back hope. We're giving back hell." In moments, the space around Calvarus exploded into noise and motion. The human resistance, pirates, exiles, survivors, scavengers, they had come. A dozen ships, each barely holding together but flying fast and angry, fighters launched, shields engaged, and the Dominion suddenly had something to worry about. Layla didn't speak for a long moment. She just stared out at the growing storm. The ship that was supposed to die alone was now surrounded by the ghosts of Earth's scattered children. She turned to her crew. "Bring everything online," she said. "I don't care if you have to kick it or pray to it. We fight with what we have." Torres grinned. "We going out loud, Captain?" Layla nodded. "We go out screaming." And so the Revenant, wounded and low on power, aligned itself with the ragtag fleet of Earth's forgotten warriors and turned to face the Dominion's hammer. The final war for the soul of humanity had just begun. The first shot came from the dead Reckoner, a high-velocity kinetic slug that punched through a Dominion scout frigate like it was papier-mâché. No announcement, no warning, just violence. And in that instant, space exploded into chaos. The ragtag human fleet surged forward, outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched, but moving like they had nothing left to lose. Because they didn't. Every ship out there was a monument to what the Dominion had tried to erase. Every crew member a survivor with blood debts and burning memories. The Revenant led the charge. Even crippled, she was the biggest and most fearsome thing in the sky. Her hull still scorched from Calvarus, her weapons jury-rigged and humming with unstable power, she tore through the formation like a wounded wolf lunging at giants. "Target the Vertok!" Layla shouted, gripping the edge of her command chair as the ship rocked under incoming fire. "Weapons hot! Shields at 17%. "We don't need shields. Give me one clean shot." Torres manually aimed the last functioning railgun, teeth clenched. "I'll thread the needle." Below deck, Voss screamed over sparking conduits. "We're going to blow the core if we keep drawing this much power," Layla snapped back. "Then let it burn." The Dominion ships returned fire with surgical precision. Fighters swarmed the human ships like locusts. The Echo's wake took a direct hit to its side reactor, spun out, trailing flames, and detonated in a blinding flash that silenced every breath on the Revenant's bridge. But the humans didn't slow down. If anything, they hit harder. The Wraith 10 kamikazed into a Dominion cruiser, slicing it open like a knife into meat. The Ember Dagger dropped mines in the path of a destroyer, then circled back to hit it again, while it flailed in its own debris. No formations, no orders, just madness and murder and vengeance wrapped in steel. Inside the Vertok, High Warcaster Rienvalk stood motionless, watching the battle unfold through his hive sight, a neural interface that fed him 10 angles at once. "These aren't soldiers," his lieutenant hissed. "They fight like ferals." Rienvalk's voice was like ground stone. "Number. They fight like they've already died." He turned to the tactical map and tapped the Revenant's position. "That ship is the nerve. Cut it, and the rest scatter." Layla didn't know he was targeting her, but she felt it, like a cold hand pressing down on her soul. She gritted her teeth as the display flared red. "Incoming!" her sensor tech shouted. "Mass acceleration from the Vertok. They're charging their solar lance." The solar lance, a planet-killer class weapon, designed to breach bunkers under oceans. Firing it at a warship was overkill. Layla stared at the readout. There was no time to run, no shield strong enough, and no more tricks left. Unless... "Voss," she said, turning to the intercom. "You still sitting on that core override?" "I told you it's unstable." "I'm not asking for stable, I'm asking for a miracle." A long pause. Then his voice came back, hard and fast. "All right, you want to dance with the devil? I'll crank the damn music." Below deck, the power core roared. Lights flickered. The deck shuddered like it was alive. Energy surged into the railgun as the last of the backup coolant turned to steam. One last shot. On the bridge, Torres stared down the scope. The Vertok was massive, moving slow, shielded in every direction. But he wasn't aiming for the hull. He was aiming for the lance. The red targeting line bounced and twitched. He whispered to it like a lover, then squeezed the trigger. The railgun fired. It screamed across the stars like a banshee, a slug of pure tungsten traveling at 14 kilometers per second. It hit the solar lance barrel just as it reached full charge. And the Vertok bloomed. A chain reaction erupted across its spine. Energy meant to crack a moon backfired, tore through the dreadnought's hull like lightning down a dry tree. Escape pods launched and were caught in the blast. On the Revenant, no one cheered. They were too busy holding the ship together with sweat, willpower, and frayed cables. Layla closed her eyes. One down. The Dominion fleet staggered. 2 cruisers fell back. The smaller craft went evasive. Suddenly, this wasn't a victory parade anymore. It was survival. And the humans were still here, still fighting, still screaming into the dark. The wreckage of the Vertok drifted like a god's corpse. Chunks of its titanium spine spun slowly through space, casting long shadows across the stars. Plasma fires still flickered in the vacuum, dancing with eerie grace. And in the silence that followed its death, for the first time in decades, the Dominion hesitated. But the humans didn't. The Revenant was barely holding together, its hull groaning with every slight maneuver, systems redlining, atmosphere leaking from 3 compartments. But it was still alive. That was more than could be said for the Dominion flagship. Inside, Layla stood in the darkened bridge, her face lit by the flickering blue of the emergency console. Her mouth was dry, her hands shaking, but her voice was steady. Status. Core holding, Voss said, voice rough. Barely, but we've got no weapons left, no railguns, no torpedoes. If we so much as cough, we'll melt the reactor. Shields? She asked. The answer came with a short laugh. Captain, we're flying with hope and duct tape. Still, Layla smiled, because even with no weapons, no shields, and half a crew either dead or bleeding, they'd done it. The Dominion hammer was broken, their invincibility shattered. And then, the signal came. Encrypted. Human bandwidth. Not from the fleet, from inside the system. A tight beam transmission pinged the Revenant directly, one that hadn't been used since before Earth fell. Layla stared at the code flashing on the screen. Her stomach dropped. Voss leaned in. Is that what I think it is? Yeah, she whispered. It's an Earthcore code. Earthcore's dead. Layla narrowed her eyes. Apparently not all of it. She opened the channel. The screen fizzed with static. Then a face appeared. A human man, maybe in his 60s, his features worn but sharp, his eyes glacial blue. A scar ran from his chin to his throat. Layla recognized him instantly. Commander Cassian Rain. Once head of Earth's Black Ops unit before the Cradle Siege, a ghost of a ghost. Hello, Captain Monroe, he said smoothly. Nice show you put on out there. She stared at him, stunned. You're supposed to be dead. I am, officially. But you know how that works. What do you want? Cassian's smile was small, calculating. I want to finish what you started. Layla didn't like the tone. You've been watching all this? Every second. We didn't interfere because we needed to see if you were still capable. You proved it. Impressive work. Behind him, the shadows shifted. More people, officers, soldiers. A whole command center hidden in the depths of the system. Layla's jaw tightened. You've been hiding all this time? While the rest of us died? While we burned? Not hiding, Cassian said. Preparing. For what? He leaned in slightly. The real war. She laughed once, bitter and sharp. You think this isn't the real war? We just took down Calvarus. We buried a dreadnought. Cassian's face hardened. "And now the Dominion will strike back with everything they have. You lit the match. We're offering you the arsenal." Layla went quiet. He wasn't lying. If Cassian really had access to EarthCore's forgotten armories, hidden fleets, black site weapons, sleeper agents, they could actually win this. Not just harass the Dominion, not just make them bleed. End them. But something didn't sit right. "Why now?" she asked. "Why show yourself now?" Cassian's eyes narrowed slightly. "Because you made yourself a symbol, and we need one of those." She understood then. It wasn't just strategy. It was control. Cassian didn't want to join her fight. He wanted to steer it, use her name, her crew, the Revenant, turn the Resistance into his personal weapon. Layla stepped back from the screen. "I'll think about it," she said coldly. Cassian's smile returned. "Don't take too long. There are other captains I can call." The screen went black. For a long time, the bridge was silent. Then Voss spoke. "You believe him?" "Yeah," Layla muttered. "I believe him." "Then what now?" She turned slowly to face her crew. Now the battle wasn't just with the Dominion. It was with the ghosts of Earth's own past, the ones who survived not by fighting, but by waiting. Layla clenched her fists. "Now," she said. "We decide if we're still our own." The Revenant drifted silently above the scorched grave of Calvarus Prime. Below her belly, the skeletal husks of Dominion ships floated like tombstones, spinning slowly in the black. Above her, stars watched in silence, ancient and indifferent. And inside, Captain Layla Monroe stood at the edge of a decision that would change the future of humanity. Commander Cassian Rain's offer still hung in the air like a toxin. EarthCore. The black ghost of Earth's old war machine, preserved in shadows, hidden behind betrayal and silence. He had the weapons, the fleet, the knowledge to break the Dominion in half. And he wanted to hand it all to Layla, as long as he pulled the strings. But Layla hadn't come this far to trade one tyrant for another. "I want options," she said, voice rough from smoke and stress. "Not just between dying out here and kneeling to that bastard." Voss sat slumped at a console, one leg bandaged, dried blood across his temple. "We're out of fuel. No propulsion, no guns. If he doesn't kill us, time will." Torres, bruised but unbroken, cracked his knuckles. "Then maybe we steal his ships, too." A long pause. Layla looked around at her bridge crew, the last sparks of Earth's resistance. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were the flame. And you don't give your flame to someone who waited in the cold. "No deals," she said. "Not with people who ran." A signal chirped again, Cassian requesting a follow-up communication. Layla didn't answer it. Instead, she accessed the Revenant's main core, where Voss had been secretly patching together the broken AI subroutines. "Can the AI still run autonomous pilot protocols?" she asked. Voss blinked. "If you route power from oxygen levels for 2 decks, yeah, you got something cooking." Layla didn't answer at first. Then, "We're going to give Earth a real reason to rise." They gathered around the holotable. The plan was suicide. But so was everything they'd done up to now. It didn't matter. What mattered was that the Dominion feared them, EarthCore feared them, and now both sides would learn why. The Revenant, emptied of most of her crew, would become the Spear. Layla would stay aboard. Everyone else would evacuate to the dead Reckoner and the few surviving ships from the Resistance fleet. They'd scatter, disappear into the dark again, but not before transmitting everything they had. Codes, war plans, stolen Dominion tech, to the hidden colonies and broken satellites across the systems. And Layla? She would fly the Revenant directly into the Dominion capital. One ship, no weapons, but a payload in the core rigged to detonate with the force of a dying star. A message, a promise, a vengeance unchained. 2 days later, the Revenant entered the Dominion's crown system of Calvarus Prime. The defense grid didn't activate at first. They didn't believe it. They thought it was a trick or a derelict. They couldn't imagine anyone would fly a ghost ship into their throat. Until they saw the flag. The human flag, burned, torn, covered in the blood of too many lost, waving from the dorsal mount. Then came Layla's voice, one final time, across open broadcast, every frequency. This is for Earth, for the ones you burned, for the children you turned to ash, for the friends I watched drown in fire and silence. You thought we died, but we became something else, something you can't kill. She stepped into the core chamber, heat rising around her, alarms blaring, the reactor glowing brighter than ever before. We are the reckoning. We are the storm. We are what's left when you take everything. The screen faded, and then the Revenant erupted. A chain reaction tore through the system, flash-frying the Dominion's main command relay, disabling their warp gates, and blacking out the entire region for weeks. Billions watched from across the galaxy as the Dominion screamed, and for the first time in living memory, stopped answering back. Months later, whispers moved through starports and scrapyards. A legend, a name, Captain Layla Monroe, not a soldier, not a politician, a ghost, a flame, the one who didn't wait in the shadows. She burned her name into the stars and lit the fuse of rebellion across every world still choking under the Dominion's boot. Humanity wasn't just back. It was finally free.